Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. So you like being outdoors, like shooting a bow? Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101. And we have a guest today, Ryan Jefferies, and we're going to talk to him about his passion for archery in the outdoors. How you doing, Ryan? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. Thanks, Roy. Appreciate you having me.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody something about yourself.
Okay. Well, I live in Kentucky, so I have a beautiful family, my wife and my kids, and we live here in just outside Louisville, Kentucky. Born and raised here in Kentucky, lived here my whole life, and just really passionate about archery and all things hunting and fishing related. So look forward to sharing some of that with you guys today.
Yeah, that's good. We have a comment from Roy Carruthers. He says hi to me and hi to you.
Hey, Roy.
Yeah, thanks for watching and listening. So tell us, how and why did you get started in archery?
Well, that goes way back. So I owe that to my dad. My dad was very active in the local archery community back in the 70s and the 80s. And he and some of his friends got together and started a local archery club. And from the age of 5 years old, I basically grew up with a bow in my hand and following my dad around through the woods and shooting outdoor animal targets and the like, and then just continue to grow with archery as I grew as a young boy, and started competing probably at the age of around 7 years old, and just stuck with that all the way up through my teenage years, and started traveling a little bit, going to some of the national tournaments. Actually, at the age of 11, was able to shoot the IBO Triple Crown for the first time, which was a really cool experience. And took it just grew with it from there. But I was very active in the ASA archery scene once it came about, starting in the mid to late 90s, and continued to shoot and compete all the way up to about 2002. And then my career and my family started to grow, and I had to step away from archery for a while just to focus on those aspects of my life. And then fortunately, around 2016, I was able to get back involved in archery again, and have really had tremendous opportunity since then to become to get to where I am today with it. And it's all because just it's such an important part of my life, and it's not something that I would want to try to do without if I could avoid it.
Yeah, that's always interesting. I like to hear how everybody got started in archery and when they got started. And starting in the 70s and 80s, you probably started with a recurve or longbow. Or did you actually get to start with a compound?
Well, I started so I was born in 1976, and so I started shooting in the early 80s.
Okay.
My dad picked it up when he was back in the 70s, and so that's where it all started for me. But it was just once I got involved with archery, and then once I was old enough to bow hunt, that's really what kept me interested in it, even through the years from like 2002 till 2016, when I wasn't competing in archery events. I was still bow hunting and was continuing to practice and continuing to, hone my skills as an archer and as a bow hunter, because that was really what my true passion was, that I, would maintain even if I didn't compete. But when the opportunity came about for me to start competing again in 2016, I had something I had been wanting to do for several years and had just not been able to make the time for it. But my work schedule and my career was able to support it at that point. So, that's when the family and I started getting involved in archery on the competitive side again.
So who all besides you shoots?
Well, so currently, I've got 4 kids. My oldest son is 20. He'll be 25 on Saturday. And then my second oldest is 23. And then we have twins, Luke and Lexi. They're 9 years old. And so both of them shoot and compete, and I do as well. And my wife, who has never shot a bow up until now, has expressed interest in getting herself a bow and wants to start shooting with us as a family. So we're really excited about that.
No, that's cool, especially when your whole family can start doing some shooting. I know when I started out, having kids, I had a shop, and my youngest was in Cub Scouts, and he was shooting all the time. And I got all 3 of my kids involved in archery, and they're not doing a whole lot right now, but like you, they have families and other things going on, and don't get out as much as they'd like to. But it's always nice when you can get your kids involved in it. And I can remember going to many of the 3D shoots with the kids so small that they're still shooting 5-pound bows.
Yeah. Yeah, and the modern archery equipment has come so far these days. Kids can get a bow that'll grow with them. So it's fantastic what they have available now. I'm envious of the equipment that the kids have today that I wish I could have had when I was 5 or 10 years old.
Yeah, there just wasn't much out there. It's like, okay, you buy a kid's bow and they outgrow it, you got to buy another bow and buy another bow. And
Yeah,
it's nice now that you can take that one bow and go from, they're just a kid to full-size adults shoot the same bow.
right. Yeah, you asked earlier about about compound versus recurve. I pretty much started with a compound. I did have a small like fiberglass recurve that I played around with in the backyard. But as soon as Dad was able to afford one, he got me a compound bow, and it's pretty much been all compound ever since. I've continued to play around with some traditional archery equipment from time to time, just for fun. Go to some fun shoots and things like that. But primarily, I'm a compound bow shooter and have been, from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's where some of us, like when I started in the 60s, there was no compounds. So
Right.
you started off with a recurve or long bow, and then you had to, eventually develop in the 70s when compounds first come out, and you kind of grow along with it. And now it seems like every year they're changing so much and getting shorter and shorter and faster and harder to shoot.
Yeah, technology has really overcome the industry. It's incredible what our compound bows and the accessories themselves, what they can do these days. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I remember trying to find my first real nice sight. I looked around all over for one that was decent, because when I started, they had a little bracket that bolted on there, and each was a separate pin that you screwed in and out for the the one distance. And as you tighten them down, if you're not careful, you can change the distance for your left and right, as well as moving it up and down. And I finally found one, and now even the cheap sights are much better than what I had back then.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything's come a long way.
Yeah, and rest have come a long way from what they was then. And once they developed the center shot risers, then that changed the whole world on how you're going to put your rest on. They used to be just stick on rests.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember all of that, and I still got a lot of that old equipment laying around. When you've been shooting a bow for 40 years, like I have, you collect a lot of equipment and stuff that's obsolete these days. But there's really it's neat to look back and see how far it's come, and have some of those old pieces of equipment to look back on and think about how it was to use that back in the day.
Yeah, I've got a lot of the old stuff there too. And then I owned an archery shop for a while. And, when I closed it, I still end up with a lot of parts.
Mhm.
I've got rests and sights that are brand new, never been used or mounted, and I just, they're just laying around, and I need to start doing something with them because they don't do me any good. And, so you just kind of have to look around and, you know, start finding somebody that can use it.
Right. And I've got boxes and boxes of aluminum arrows,
Yeah,
and there's just not much need for them any longer, with as good as the carbon arrows are these days.
yeah. I remember going through the transition from, wood to aluminum and then aluminum to carbon. And I don't know if you remember the first carbons that come out. There's no way I'd shoot them. No way I'd hunt with them. Because what the carbon fibers went from one end straight through the shaft. So when they broke, they splintered all over. And if you broke one in your hand, you get fiberglass splinters all over you. And now the new
Right.
ones, they're so much better. They just break. They just break clean. They don't do that because they lay the carbon fibers out differently. And now pretty much a carbon arrow is straight or broke. You really
Yeah.
don't have much else. Now, if you shoot it lots and lots of times, then it might change a little bit. But like I have so many arrows that I'll never use them all up. So what all are you doing now? You just doing 3D shoots, hunting, and a target, or what are you doing now?
So, yeah, during the winter months, we travel and compete indoor archery tournaments. We shoot 5-spot NFAA, Vegas rounds, and this current calendar year, we're fortunate enough to go to Lancaster. Went to what they call it, the Hoosier 690, which is an indoor event that we had back in December up north of Indianapolis, and then went to Vegas this year. So I really enjoy shooting the indoor archery during the winter months. I think it helps me with my form, helps me with confidence and learning how to shoot under pressure. Certainly helps with your shot execution and just the repetition of what a good shot should feel like. And then in February every year, we start to transition to outdoor 3D, and continue to travel and compete with outdoor 3D until about August, when we wrap things up at the IBO World Championship in mid-August each year. So travel to the ASA and the IBO Triple Crown events. For the last several years, I've made all of those tournaments, and that's a pretty demanding schedule. It keeps us traveling about every other week from February until August. And so it's there's not much time for other stuff when you hit that many events every year. But it's something we love to do, and we've made a lot of great friends traveling all over the country, and we're going to continue to do it as long as we can, and as long as it makes sense for us to keep doing it. So, and you mentioned bow hunting. So our archery season here in Kentucky starts in the early part of September. So we can archery hunt for whitetails and turkey from the Labor Day weekend until the middle of January every year. So we get a really long archery season, and so you roll all that together, and that's year round. We're doing something archery related.
Yeah, Roy mentioned in the comments the 2117s. I remember them well.
Yeah, 2117. That was a good shaft. A lot of deer taken with a 2117.
Yeah, I used to use the 2512s in my bow. Way over spine, but it shot perfectly out of it. You shoot it, it shot great. So, hey, when I finally sold that bow, I had it set up for it. I told the guy, he says, "Do not change arrows unless you're going to change your rest. Do not mess with it because it all works perfectly." And then after a while you're going to do something else with it. See a different rest. Back then I remember adjusting the rest. You take the outside pin off, adjust the inside one, put the outside one back on. If it wasn't right, then you take it out, do it, just constantly adjusting. You pull it off and put it in shape. Yeah, it's like once you get them set, you don't mess with them. One of those things that just don't mess with them. If it's working, don't fix it.
So, Roy, where are you located?
I'm in Nebraska.
Okay.
In a village between Omaha and Lincoln.
Okay.
Out in the kind of boonies almost.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So how did you hear about me?
Well, Facebook, I have a lot of friends, and all the friends that are on Facebook, that are archers, hey, I like talking to archers all over the world, and some reason your profile popped up, being friends on Facebook, you're going to pop up, at least once a year, when your birthday pops up. And then as I'm browsing around, it's like I see other people that, their friends are in there, and it's like, oh, it looks like that'd be interesting to talk to. And so then I invite them on the podcast. And the only requirement to be on the podcast is you have to either want to shoot a bow or you're shooting a bow. There's from the beginner, I call it Arch Talk 101 because I want to help beginners in there.
Sure.
And even beginners need help. Even advanced archers can use help.
Sure.
Everybody can use a little help in something. And I just I put a lot of content out there, how to do different stuff. And now it's really interesting, being able to talk to people all over the world. I've talked to guys in Africa, Croatia, Italy, several different countries. And in fact, the group that we have, the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group, is a worldwide organization. We have archers in there from countries that I have to Google map them to figure out where they're at. And we're all in there. And, it's all about helping other archers. And I know, like you, when, if you get somebody out there who has a question, you're more than willing to help them. On my 3D rig, I put my NFA archery instructor patch on the rig itself, and I don't wear it on my shirt. I'll wear it on there because if somebody wants to ask me a question, like it says, okay, I'm an instructor, so I can help you. And I've helped lots of people how to shoot. That's always nice. I don't know how many people you've taught, but when that light bulb goes off and they just like, oh wow, this is it. Or the funnest ones is those that's like, I never shot one. It's like, I don't know if I'll just try one shot. And that first shot goes off and he's like, whoa, this is fun. Can I do it again? And they see why we have a passion for archery, because it's just so much fun doing it.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a good point. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or you're an advanced archer. There's always something to learn, and I believe that's what keeps everybody so interested in it. I've been shooting a bow for 40 years, and every time I pick my bow up and I go to shoot it, whether it's in practice or in competition, I learn something new. And I think that is such a fulfilling thing, because you might be pursuing perfection or trying to achieve perfection, but you may never get there. And it's that those small little changes that can happen, or the small little things that you learn that you can then start to see some improvement that keeps you coming back. It's a lot like golf in that respect. It's a lifelong sport. You can pick it up as a kid and you can continue to do it till you're no longer able to walk or pull the bow back. So there's no age limit. And I really think that's what makes it such a special thing that we can all enjoy.
Well, and then just, if you can't pull a bow back, that's not a reason to quit. Get a crossbow.
Yeah.
And if you can't pull a string, they have cranks for them. Crank it back. You're still archery.
Right.
Because, my definition of archery, which I haven't found anybody to prove me wrong yet, is a stick with a string flinging another stick. That's archery.
Mm-hmm.
A crossbow fits that. Longbow, recurve, compounds. If you take just the stick and put a string on it and throw it like a spear, that's still archery, because you're still flinging that stick.
Right.
It's all in there, and that's what's nice about it, is there's so many variations, and just in equipment and variations in styles. And I know when I record some of the videos sometimes, for instructional videos, I'll look at it as like, I need to pay attention to what I'm telling them to do, because I'm not even doing it right. You look at the video, it's like, oh, that's not right. It's not what I'm telling them to do in the video. I didn't do it. Sometimes it's nice to be able to do the video. I know when I first started, they didn't really have videos. They had VCRs. You could do a VCR recording, but there you record it and go back and play it, and the quality wasn't good. Now our cell phones have such good quality videos in them. You can take it, you can stop them, you can slow motion them and zoom in, and look at everything, so you can nail down to that little fine little point, which I've had people, look at a video. It's like, a fairly well seasoned archer. It's like, I'm having a little problem with something. And it showed me the video, and it's like, I can't hardly find much, but you might try this one little tweak, and that's sometimes that's all it takes. And somebody that knows how to look for those, and you know, doing this instructing since 95, but I've taught hundreds of people how to shoot, and it's always interesting how much you can pick up when you're teaching somebody else what to do. And remember, you got to pay attention to yourself. Do what you tell everybody else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, it's easy to tell somebody else how to do it, but yet we still have a hard time doing it ourselves when it's our, we're the ones behind the bow. So there's a very strong mental aspect to the game, as we're all aware.
Yeah, we've talked that on some previous podcasts, about the mental aspect of archery, and just everybody wants to think about, okay, this is what I did in the past, or if I got to get this to go to future, in the future, I got to not miss one, and then you're thinking not miss one, and you miss one, and then you're all flustered, and you just got to focus on the now. The past is past, can't change. Your future hasn't happened yet, and that's the hardest part of this, is to focus on now and ignore everything else that's going around you. And it's hard to turn off our brain from thinking about other stuff, but that takes a little bit of practice to work on that. And
Yeah, I believe that's the part that takes the most practice, and it's hard to practice the mental game unless you're actually competing or trying to shoot, a score or achieve some sort of a goal. But sometimes we get in our own way. And like you said, we're thinking about the shot we just messed up on rather than what do I need to do to hit the next one. And that takes some time and some maturity as an archer to learn that. And that's the part that I have to really coach my kids on most regularly is just staying positive, keeping their thoughts clear, and not worrying about the score, the outcome, or where the arrow hits, but just what are the steps you need to follow in order to make a good shot, and then the outcome will work itself out the way it should. So I say it all the time, especially shooting indoors. We're standing at 20 yards. We're trying to hit a circle that's an inch and a half in diameter. It's really easy for an experienced archer to do that, but we make it harder than it is because our brains get to spinning, and we think we're thinking about the wrong stuff instead of about what are the basic elements or fundamentals of my shot process that are going to help me be successful. So yeah, we have to get out of our own way on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's kind of a common thing, but anybody that's teaching other archers is, we find that we're in our own way more than we get out of our way and let things happen.
Absolutely.
So, what is the biggest struggle you've had in archery so far?
The biggest struggle, well, I think that I would say not being too hard on yourself is good advice. I mean, we all expect to do well. We want to. Maybe we set goals that are a little lofty, or we have expectations of ourselves that are unrealistic, or maybe we're just super critical of the things that we are doing that aren't going the way they should, and we get hung up on that. This is kind of back to the mental aspect of it. But so rather than focusing on all the things that we're doing right, we start to focus on the things that we're doing incorrectly or where we've messed up. But the bottom line is, it's archery, and we all miss. We're not perfect. We're gonna miss from time to time. Archery happens, right? And so you can't expect every arrow is going to hit where you want it to land. But focus on the things that you're doing right. Focus on the things that are getting the results that you're looking for, and then stay positive in that mindset. So my biggest struggle has in the past has just been too critical of my own mistakes, and leaving a tournament and dwelling on the things that I did wrong instead of focusing on the things that I did correctly. And that's something I still have to remind myself of to this day. We go to a tournament and we shoot, say at a 3D tournament, we shoot 40 arrows, and it may be two shots in that whole weekend that kept you from achieving your goal out of the 40 arrows. And so it's those two mistakes that we want to look back on and go, well, if I hadn't done this and if I hadn't done that, I would have done this. Well, the reality is you made a couple mistakes, but you had 38 other shots that you did extremely well. And so focus on those 38 good shots and how I'm going to do that the next time, and put the bad things behind you. So that's been one of my biggest challenges, I would say.
Yeah, that's the same for all of us. You don't want to miss, and then you miss, and then you start thinking about it, and then you miss again, and then you miss again, and it's all shot. And sometimes I think it's almost better if you don't even know what your score is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You shoot them, and your feedback is good shot, or you hit the target, or you missed target.
Yeah.
And you hit it, and then just go with whatever you do.
Yeah, it's certainly a big downfall if you start to keep track of your score, whether you're keeping track of it in your head or you're actually you're the one that's writing the scores down on paper. It's hard to block that out, particularly if you are, pursuing some sort of a new personal best, or you've got a goal in mind that you're trying to achieve. All that stuff becomes a distraction from what you're actually trying to accomplish, and that's just making good shots. And if you can center on that and just put all this other stuff out of your mind, you have a much better chance of achieving your goal, if you're not keeping track of that stuff as it's happening. So that's great advice.
Yeah, if you're taking score, just write down each person's score, and then don't pay attention. You put it down and then go on. Don't worry about it. Don't start doing totals up until the end. Then you can start adding it up. Like Kenny Rogers and the gambler. No reason to count your chips until the dealing's done. And that's the same thing. Don't count your score until you're done, because you can't change it. All you can do is focus on the new stuff.
Yeah, that's really hard to learn. And it takes some really strong mental focus to block that type of stuff out. And there's other things that can distract you too, whether it's the background noise going on, the people sitting behind you that are talking a little bit too loud, or, just whatever it might be, the stuff that takes your focus off of your shot process is what's going to be inevitably, that's what's going to hold you back if you can't figure out a way to block that stuff out.
Well, I know people I've talked to that, like I said, they encourage their kids to make all kinds of racket, just play, have fun, just don't run into them or run in front of the line, but back behind them making all kinds of noise, they just don't care how much doing, because that helps them tune out all the other aspect, the aspect of, there's other noise on there. And of course, you're always going to hear stuff like when you hear your name, that's always going to jar you a little bit.
Yeah.
If you hear something in there, your mind's going to be lit, but it allows you to help tune it out where you don't really think about all the stuff that's going on. You can kind of help focus on it. And
absolutely.
Put our guy hearing on where we tune everybody out.
Well, it's usually your wife's voice that you pick out of the crowd. You can block the other stuff out, but if you hear your wife back there whispering, you'll be able to pick her out above everybody else.
Yeah. And then that gets distracting. But that's the way it goes. We just have to, you know, go with the flow and do what we need to do to have fun. And when it starts becoming work, that's when it starts being no fun. So that
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a pastime for me. I mean, I work a full-time job. So whenever I'm going to a tournament, I'm taking vacation or taking time off work to attend these tournaments. So it's something I'm doing because I'm truly passionate and I love going and competing and being at the tournament. And when it starts becoming like work to me, it won't be nearly as much fun. So I think that's important. You got to keep that outlook on it.
yeah. So what has been back on the hunting, what has been your most memorable hunt?
Wow, I've been on some really great hunts, and I believe you can make great memories even if you don't have a successful hunt, or you can define a successful hunt by the memories that you make rather than the animal that you harvested. A couple years ago, myself and Nathan Brooks, good friend of mine, we went to Colorado to hunt pronghorn antelope for the first time. It was my first time; it wasn't his. But we went out there to southwestern Colorado and hunted antelope with our bows, spot and stalk on public land. And we spent about 8 days out there chasing antelope all over the prairie. And backcountry camps right off the side of the. And we just had a phenomenal time. We didn't see a lot of antelope, but we saw enough that we were able to hunt every single day and put a stalk on antelope and get within bow range every day. And I didn't bring an antelope home from that trip. He was able to tag one, I think, on our 5th day. And we had a great time, and I got to experience something new. So that was certainly a very memorable hunt, just because it was so much to learn. It's kind of like you said with archery, you're always learning, but it was a new experience. It was a new animal that I had never hunted before, and in an area I'd never been to. So just truly enjoyed that entire trip from start to finish, and had some great fellowship with Nathan while we were out there. So I'll cherish that one for a very long time. We're trying to plan a trip to go back, maybe this year, maybe not, but I want to get back out there and see if I can't redeem myself the next.
Yeah, go out there again. You had your experience of doing the hunt, not killing one. Now you want to go out and actually bring home some meat.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, over the years, just a lot of deer hunting and turkey hunting here in Kentucky with my family. My dad, he and I, we've always been really close, and we spent a lot of time hunting together, and that's something that we look forward to every fall. And he's getting older. He's not able to hunt as much as he used to, but we still make it a point to spend some time in the woods every year. And this past season, I was able to sit with my dad and my youngest son, and both of them kill a buck on the same morning with all 3 of us together. And that was a really great day. And that's what deer hunting is all about. I think is that time in the field with your family, and we love to eat deer meat, and we try to put 3 or 4 in the freezer every year. But it's that time in the field with your family and your friends that I think is what truly makes it what it is, the experience that we all enjoy.
Yeah, that time with your kids in the field is always a nice time when you can get out there and spend some time together. And
yeah, and my dad, from the time I was 11, that's about the time I started deer hunting. He always put me first. He would take me out and make sure that I had the opportunity to harvest a deer, even if it meant that he didn't get a chance to, or didn't tag one himself. And so I really appreciated that. And the older I get, and now that I've got kids that are starting to hunt as well, I can see that same progression and maturity in myself as a deer hunter, where it means more to me to watch my son, get his first buck than it does for me to, get a trophy animal to hang on the wall.
Yeah, I know I did it when my oldest was going out there hunting. I put him in the primo tree stand, and and then when I'm sitting here, when he's not there, I'm sitting in the same stand and I'm watching deer walk underneath this tree stand.
Yeah.
When he couldn't be there, it's like, oh man, he needed to be in the tree stand. And so that's you just go out there and do that, and let them do them. I've had time when one time it was raining. It was supposed to quit raining. It didn't quit raining, so we decided, okay, we're gonna walk out. And we're walking out, and here's this deer downhill from us. So I told him, I said, okay, stand behind me, get ready, because the deer's gonna be looking at me, not seeing him. And it's like, okay. And then once you're ready, then kind of just slide out, past me here. And then, yeah, but it didn't stay long enough for him to do that. But hey, I was blocking for him,
Yeah.
because I was just standing there letting him get a shot at it. And I never had a thought of trying to shoot it. It's like, okay, here's your chance.
Right. Yeah. Well, and just like with archery, as a new hunter, there's so much to learn, and you make a lot of mistakes. And when I take my kids out and they're trying to get in a position to get a shot at the deer, or they're waiting for the deer to turn or to take a step, or that they move when they shouldn't, and the deer sees them. I can remember when I was their age and I was making those mistakes, and I was like, another missed opportunity. I got so close, but I wasn't able to seal the deal. It's really fun to see them experience that, and then
Yeah.
have some success and start to realize, okay, they're learning something every time we go out, and that's really fun to be a part of that, and keep them interested in that.
Yeah, that's always a good part of it, is when you go out with other guys that, your kids or wives, girlfriends, brothers, sisters. It's just being out in the field is the fun part.
Absolutely.
So what's been your most difficult hunt that you've been on?
Most difficult. Well, honestly, I haven't done a lot of hunting. Well, I've got the perfect answer. Thinking about that now that I've had a chance to give it some thought. So here in Kentucky, we've got a pretty good elk herd. So dating back to the late 90s, they started introducing elk into the mountains of eastern Kentucky. And so for about the last 15 years, we've had a lottery drawing for elk hunting permits here in the state of Kentucky. And so I've applied for that drawing every single year that we've had the option to do that. And I've only been drawn one time, and I drew a tag in 2014 for an archery cow tag. And so unlike the part of the state where I live, eastern Kentucky is all in the Appalachian Mountains. And so it's extremely rugged. It's a coal country. So there's been a lot of mountaintop removal and coal mining activities in that part of the state. And a lot of that coal mining land has been reclaimed and turned back over into wildlife management areas for public hunting and stuff like that. And so those elk have really thrived in that part of the state. But it's difficult country to navigate. Access to areas can be really difficult. But I drew a tag in 2014 for a cow, and did a lot of internet research and tried to figure out where the best areas were to go. Did a couple scouting trips before the season opened, and then I was fortunate enough that year on November the 1st to get a shot and tag a mature cow there on public land, and a do it yourself style hunt on public land. So extremely challenging from a lot of different perspectives. I'd never hunted elk before, and I wasn't familiar with that part of the state, so I had to do a lot of homework and spend some time learning my way around and figuring out where the elk were, and then make several trips back there to have a successful hunt. So it was very challenging physically and just from the amount of time that I invested. most of your shots on hunting deer out of a tree stand, you're looking at 20 yards and less, and you're shooting from a fixed position. Where I knew in that situation I had to be prepared to make longer shots. I was going to be on the ground, and so I really practiced and put a lot of work into it that year to be ready for that hunt, not just physically, but also to make sure I could hit what I was aiming at out to 70 yards if that's what it was going to take. Fortunately, the shot that I got on the cow was only 30 yards, so it was a fairly easy shot, and was able to bring one home.
Yeah, that sounds like a real rewarding after all the effort you put into to do it. And it's not just like go out and shoot and get something. And
Yeah, and there's been a lot of people go out and not be successful in that hunt, but I knew it was going to be a very limited opportunity to draw another tag, and so I was trying to make the most of the opportunity that I had, and like I had assumed, I haven't drawn a tag since then. I've continued to apply every year since then. It's going on 10 years now, and I still haven't drawn another tag, but we'll keep trying. Maybe we'll get another opportunity to go back.
yeah, that'd be nice. Once the herd starts getting a little bit bigger and, then they'll have more and more tags available. But so how has the elk population been doing? Has it been getting bigger or?
I haven't really looked at it much lately, but back at that time, it was somewhere around 14,000 animals. So it was a pretty good herd, and I don't remember how many they introduced initially. I think it was in the somewhere in the 1,000 range or 1,500. But I think the population has declined a little bit over the last 10 years or so, because they've certainly cut back on the number of tags that they've drawn or each year. And so, basically, they make a determination each year how many tags they're going to make available. And so it fluctuates based on the population data at that time. I think we're still on the upside of 10,000 animals or more, but things do, obviously there's a lot of environmental factors that play into that.
Right.
Here to the next.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that affect, the size of the herds, whether it be elk or moose or deer or any animal.
Yeah.
Part of it is, the habitat they have as well as the available food and the available natural predators. And
Right.
some of those big animals were the only natural predator for them, other than, getting old.
Right.
So what's your plans in the future, in your archery journey?
Well, I'm 46. I'll be 47 later this year, and at the age of 50, I'll be able to move into the senior classes and the national level competitions. And so, I plan to continue to travel and compete as long as I'm able to financially and being able to balance that with my career. And I'm hopeful that I'm still able to do this for another 5 or 10 years, as long as my health holds up and we don't get distracted with other stuff. But recognizing I've got young kids and they're going to be in high school before too long, and their schedules are going to change and become more demanding. So we'll probably have to take it next just to see how much time we have available and what other things we've got going on in our life at the time. I've been real fortunate over the last several years to travel as much as we have, and honestly, I feel like I have achieved most all the goals that I've set for myself, but there's still a lot more that could be done. So I'm just trying to do what I can while my health is still intact and my body will allow it to happen. So one thing I've noticed here recently is that I'm starting to lose some of my up close vision. So I might be getting a pair of reading glasses before too long, but hopefully, if that's the worst thing that happens, I guess I'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, it's as you start getting older, you start having a problem with the eyes, and I'm 68, so those long range shots, It ain't happening for me because I can't see good enough, to see the pins and the target. And, so I
Yeah.
just don't, the 80, 100-yard shots, unless it's on a big animal, it's like, I'm not going to see them well enough to be able to shoot them. So I keep my shots, with the range that, you know, I can shoot out that far. It's just, it's hard to see the target. And,
Yeah.
as you get older, you start getting the where cataracts forming. And, yeah, and the problem I have is I look down at my fiber optic pins and I don't see solid, like the red pin's not red. Looks like a red donut, has a black dot in the middle of it.
Huh.
So things are getting a little weird. It's blurry. And then being right eye dominant, my left eye is the clear eye, not my right one. So my mind picks up the wrong set of pins because I see two sets of pins when I look down there. And over the years, my mind has developed, ignore the dim set of pins. And now the right one is the dim one. So my mind ignores the correct pins. And so I have to kind of adjust for that. And when I'm out hunting, though, it's pretty nice because I wear a sweatshirt with a hood on it, hooded sweatshirt, and with a baseball cap. And as I turn my head, the hood blocks my left eye. Problem solved. Summertime, yeah, it's not going to happen that way. I'm going to have to, do the blinking thing and cover it up or something to make sure I pick the right set of pins. And so we all run into challenges. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the way it goes.
You might have to change your approach, when that type of stuff happens, and it's something that we'll be able to do our entire life, but the level at which we can do it is the part that becomes more difficult over time. And I feel like I'm fortunate enough at this point. I'm at a point where I feel like I'm still getting better, as an archer and as a competitor. And I hope that trend continues for the foreseeable future. But inevitably, it's going to happen at some point where things are just going to start to degrade, and I'm hopeful that I've got another good 5 or 10 years in me before that happens.
Well, you should, you're not even 50 yet. So you got at least a good 10 years, at least,
Yeah.
if not 20.
Well, it's funny because I compete against a lot of guys that are a whole lot younger than me, and I've been fortunate to meet some really amazing archers and compete with them on a national level. And me being 46, almost 47, I think a lot of those guys look to me, and it gives them hope, that they're going to be able to continue to compete at a high level, into their mid to late 40s. Although they're not there yet, they can see that it's possible. And that same thing for me. I look at the senior pro division and see the talent that's in that group of archers. Obviously they've got a lot of experience, but they're
Right.
extremely talented, and it gives me hope. That into my mid to late 50s, I'll have a chance to continue to compete at a high level as well. So I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's always nice when you can see what others are doing, and it's kind of inspirational, to see somebody that's doing what you want to be doing, and it's like, okay, they can do that. What are they doing? How are they doing it? I just imitate them, and now I can get better. And I've had that in different sports I've been in, where you get somebody that's just, you're here and their level is way up higher, and it seems like you always perform better when you're around them, because that gives you something to strive for. It's kind of, they kind of pull you up. It's better being when you're at the top, everybody's trying to pull you down. And it's one of those, you don't want to be on the top because they're trying to pull you down and trying to get back up. And it's just all kind of part of its mental attitude, like we talked about earlier. Do you focus on the fact that you're beating them, and they're not close to you, and eventually they're going to be beating you? Or do you focus on, okay, they're doing this, I can do this, I need to follow my process, I have a process set up. When I do it, I go through the same process. I have my bow sitting in the little loop that holds the bottom limb. Once I discovered those hunting, and I don't see how I could shoot without them, because you can rest that bottom limb in that loop. And now it's on my rig. So when I'm shooting, I start out with it in there, and I come up to the whole process through. It's the same thing every time. And When you don't do it for a little while, then you get back and it's like, okay, something's not feeling right. But oh, okay. So you think back to your process, and so that's what you got to do is just, what is your process and stay with it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you do tend to rise to the level of your competition if you're letting that motivate you, and you're focusing on the right things. That can also be something that I think a lot of people get challenged with, is that they start to get distracted by how well their competition is shooting rather than focusing on what they need to do. Kind of back to your point. I've had it happen both ways, where you're shooting with somebody that's really pushing you, and it's keeping you on your toes, and it's got you, hyper focused, because you've got to be at your best to compete or to keep up with that individual. But I've also let it affect me from the standpoint that that person might be shooting so well that it feels like there's no way I can compete with them on that particular day, and I let that distract me. When what I really need to be focused on is, what do I need to do in order to shoot my bow and do what I already know how to do, and not worry about somebody else's score or performance, but just what did I come here to do today, and focus on that. So yeah, it can be a double-edged sword, but I
Right.
agree with your statement that you surround yourself with good competitors, and you will find yourself much closer to them than you would if you're around people that just aren't at your level. So it helps to have somebody around that's pushing you. We're really lucky here in Kentucky, where I'm located, within an hour drive of where I live. There's about 8 or 10 pro archers in this area that all shoot 3D, and we get together on the weekends and compete and have a good time, and just really push each other to get better. And then when we go to the tournaments, we've been practicing and competing against those same individuals in our home area. And so you get comfortable around those people, but it's also you're kind of sharpening each other's skills, because you're going out there and you're laughing and cutting up, but you're also pretty serious about this, to the point that you want to be the top guy in the group every time you go out. But you're going to have to be on your best in order to achieve that. So it's really good to have that type of a network of professional archers in the area that we're all trying to push each other to new levels.
Yeah, I know when I was doing a lot of 3D shooting with a buddy of mine when he was still alive, we'd go out there and we'd shoot, and it didn't matter where we could be, last and next to last as far as score. We didn't care. The only thing we cared about was, did I beat your score? Did you beat mine? Who gets to give it? Who has to take it on the way home? Next
Yeah.
week it changed. Each week it seemed like it was different. One person wasn't always on top, another person wasn't always on the bottom, and sometimes they'd go first and they'd shoot, and it's like, okay, it wasn't as far as we thought it was, or it's further, and then we'd adjust, and next time we'd shoot first, and we just kind of, hey, just pushing each other to make each other better, and just like who got the top score that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Who gets to buy ice cream, right, for the other one?
Right. Yeah, that's kind of about it. And we didn't care, we didn't really care about all the trophy stuff. The way a lot of the 3Ds were um then was, if you had like 30 people, you have a group, the top 10 are in one group, the middle 10 is in the next group, and the bottom 10 in another group. So they give out a first, second, third for each group. So you got your beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So you're giving out lots of trophies. And the bad part is when you're number 10, you got nothing. Number 11 got a trophy.
Yeah.
It's, well, okay, I can see why they do that. It gives the beginners something to shoot for. And then those in the middle, it gives each person something to shoot for. But I never worried about the trophies. I got a few of them. I didn't really care. I got
Yeah.
trophies in other sports I've done, and it's like, okay, shoot, have fun. Actually, I preferred plaques, like the one we had, like a plaque in Nebraska, and everyone would do it in Nebraska. Then when you win one, there'd just be a plaque to put on there. Because what are you going to do with a whole bunch of trophies?
Right.
You have a big old display case of them. I know my niece, she did baton, and she had boxes and boxes of trophies. And what are you going to do with them all? It's like, that's why, some of them actually, some of the rest, they had the ribbons with the little medals on them. Those are nice because we can hang a lot of those together. But
Yeah.
it's just, it's all fun. So what do you have for parting thoughts before we end this session?
Well, I would first just say, really, I do appreciate you inviting me to be on the podcast. Love to come back anytime that you want to talk more. There's, I like you, I do enjoy helping people get started in archery. I'm very fortunate to have made a lot of connections through archery and connected with a lot of folks all over the world through Facebook and social media. That's been pretty amazing. I started a YouTube channel this year to try to put out some information because I think for someone who's new to archery, that seems to be the place a lot of people go to for their first impressions or getting information is YouTube. And there's a lot of great information out there, but there's a lot of bad information too. So,
Right.
One of the I'm passionate about is promoting the sport, but also putting content together that will help somebody become a better archer and bow hunter. And so I'm trying to do more and more of that now with my YouTube channel and creating some content for that purpose. But then just growing the archery community and trying to be an advocate for the sport. That's what I'm really, really find rewarding these days. And I have a lot of people reach out to me through Facebook and Messenger and just asking questions. And I really welcome that. It's always great to help somebody if I can. And so, I think that's kind of a responsibility that we all have if we love something as much as we do, is to make sure that we're passing it on to someone else.
Right.
If you can't your kids or you can't pass it on to your family members, try to pass it on to somebody in some form or fashion, because it's something, it truly is a tradition, that we can pass on from generation to generation. And I would just encourage everybody to contribute in that way. Another thing that I would encourage people to do is volunteer their time with their local club or some sort of archery related function. Whether you're coaching at your local school or you are working at your local club to host events or set up 3D tournaments, or just mow the grass and clean up the old cardboard. Do something at your local club to give back, because clubs are dying. There are not as many clubs available as there used to be. And the few that are out there are always struggling to get volunteers to help with the things that they need to do to continue to support the sport of archery. So, volunteer some time, go out and lend a hand. And in that way, you're giving back to the sport that we all love. And that's going to ensure that it's going to be there for our kids and their kids for many years to come.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
So it's Ryan Jefferies Outdoors, Ryan Jefferies Archery is my YouTube channel. And then on Facebook, Ryan Jefferies Archery and Outdoors is my archery page. And so really try to utilize those two platforms to just what I discussed right there, just promote archery and put information out that can be helpful to archers at any level.
Yeah, I'll leave links in the description for those for the podcast and YouTube channel, so that you can make an easier connection to you. So I'd like to thank you for being on the show. It's been a lot of fun talking with you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll be talking later. And like I said, you have your Facebook group, the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group is set up basically the same way. If you have any questions, we're there to answer your questions. And like I say, the only dumb question is the one you didn't ask. So ask the question. We don't allow links in there except to archery events. So you don't have to worry about being sold to. It's all just to help the archers. And that's why I set up the podcast as well as the YouTube channel or the Facebook group as well. So once again, thanks for being on the show. My name is Roy Canterbury, and I host today on Arch Talk 101 podcast.
Thanks, Roy. Talk to
Yeah.
you soon.
Yeah.